Hey everybody, this is Robb Ryerse alongside Dan Deitrich, and this is the Common Good podcast on a Tuesday. Tuesday is the day we talk about politics, and we're going to talk about all sorts of stuff that's happening in the news, and kind of give our political slant on it and talk about the political implications. We were hoping to have our fearless leader back today.
We were this close to having Doug.
We could see Doug, we couldn't hear Doug. And maybe that might be fun. Is just have Doug just like sitting,
lurking in the background.
Yeah, Doug is currently in an RV somewhere in Louisiana, getting close to the Texas border. He is driving the RV that was used during the We the People ride back to California, and he was marveling at how much faster, how much better time they're making when you've got all those tires on the RV as opposed to just two on your bike, and you're being powered by diesel as opposed to being powered by your legs.
Yeah, those things do have to. They don't drive themselves though yet, so that was our support vehicle for the cross-country trip, and it needs to get back home. So
yeah. I wish I could say in one piece, but but I know the truth.
It's seen some wear and tear, that's for sure.
I might have some pictures on my phone. So listen, it's so glad that you're joining us, whether you're watching on Facebook or Twitter or any of those places, and would love to have you comment. Tell us where you are in the world. I'm coming from Springdale, Arkansas, just outside of Fayetteville, Arkansas, as Doug Padgett would say. Dan, you're coming from South Bend, Indiana. We would love to hear wherever you are in the world, and we're going to talk some politics today. But it is Giving Tuesday.
That's right.
We go from Black Friday to Small Business Saturday to hopefully taking a break on Sunday, and then Cyber Monday, and that leads into Giving Tuesday. If you are looking for an organization that's doing good work in the world that you would like to support here on Giving Tuesday, we at Vote Common Good would love to have your support. We are working to change the political narrative, to let religious folks know, that religiously motivated voters know that they don't have to reflexively vote Republican, and they don't have to do everything the religious right tells them to do, that there are options. And sometimes our faith might just lead us to do things like vote for Democrats or support different policies.
Yeah.
And that's what our work is all about, helping voters know that there are options. And then we also work with candidates as well, helping candidates around the country be better at connecting with religiously motivated voters in a really authentic way, not a pandering way, but a really authentic way. So if you'd like to support our work, we would deeply appreciate it. You can go to votecommongood.com, and that is our brief Giving Tuesday little plug there. Dan, did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I did. Yeah, it was pretty low key, and that's probably for the best. So
yeah.
How about you guys stayed put? And
we did. Yeah, this was a weird one. Our two oldest children did not come home for Thanksgiving this year. They actually spent it together in New York City, so I was glad that they were together, but they weren't with us.
Yeah,
and then our third eldest got invited to her boyfriend's grandparents' house. So it was just me and the wife and the little one. And frankly, it didn't feel like Thanksgiving. I mean, the food was great, but it was so different from what we normally do that it felt weird. And I kind of missed the old days.
Yeah.
It was a little nostalgic. You know what else I'm nostalgic for, Dan?
What's that?
Just the regular coronavirus. The good old-fashioned coronavirus 1.0. These variants are terrifying. I went and got my booster yesterday. I got a little bit of a sore arm. today as a result of that. I went and got my booster because these variants are scary things.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan, have you heard about the Omicron variant?
Yeah, it seems like we're just making up words for him now. Is this?
I was gonna say, this sounds like a transformer, doesn't it? Like
Decepticon here.
That's right. It's a Decepticon. The Omicron variant, I think, was discovered in South Africa because they apparently in South Africa are doing amazing things in terms of testing and the scientific research. But this variant apparently, from what I've read, it seems to have few. Like I know about any of this, it seems that. But we are all internet doctors now, right?
Right.
That if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that we can all spout off about medical stuff as if we know when we don't. So apparently, the Omicron variant has fewer mutations than the Delta variant, which that sounds good, I guess. But it also it seems like it's going to be very resistant to even the vaccinations. Which is a scary thing because vaccinations have been such a key way that we've been able to slow this pandemic and, just wish for the day when it's over. But it sounds like this variant that has now been discovered in Europe and will no doubt spread around the world like the Delta variant did. This one, a little bit more resistant to the vaccinations. And that news, when talked about by the CEO of Moderna, sent stock prices tumbling today.
Yeah.
Stocks are way down. Oil prices are falling as well, which that's a good thing, frankly. We talked last week about, the strategic reserve and Joe Biden trying to do something about oil prices.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like coronavirus is helping him out. So oil prices are down on the news that on the speculation that people aren't going to travel. Travel is going to dip as a result of the Omicron variant, but stock prices taking a big hit as well. I think that's concerning when you see these things happening because it indicates that people who do the research on what is the impact of this stuff going to be are spooked a little bit by this variant. And when I saw this news story today, I thought, oh, shoot, we might have a problem here.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is, it's sort of like the markets don't lie they don't get political about stuff like this. Either you're afraid you're going to lose money or you're not. And so you've got the invisible hand of capitalism here saying, brace for impact because this doesn't look great.
Yeah. So we're we normally end the show with really bad news. Today we're starting with like this,
and then we're going to dig ourselves out of the hole.
Yeah. All of this is indication that even though we want to return to normal and we want to get back to the way things have always been, we just have to be super vigilant. We have to continue to wear masks. My 7-year-old daughter got her second vaccine shot last night, and took it like a champ, and hasn't. I mean, it's been fantastic the way she's handled it, and she said to us, she's like, "Does this mean I don't have to wear my mask?" And actually, I'm like, no, we gotta keep doing this stuff. Because the vaccines will help you to not get as sick if you get the coronavirus. They will keep you from dying from the coronavirus. But man, this stuff is still spreading. So we've got to keep social distancing. We've got to keep washing our hands. We've got to, keep wearing our masks and doing these things that are so tremendously effective. And even though we don't feel like it, like that's what we've got to do. And what's frustrating is
news of this new variant comes out, and the political right jumps on it and almost makes it like it's a manufactured thing. Like, oh, isn't this convenient? A new variant. Like it's some sort of conspiracy of the Democrats to make people wear masks. And like, what a crazy, like a global conspiracy to develop a new variant in a different part of the world. And the rest of the world is in on the conspiracy just to affect the midterm elections in the United States. Like it doesn't make sense, but that doesn't matter.
I think, when we look back on this period of time in our nation's history, I think one of the most significant stories that will be told, one of the biggest lessons that hopefully will be learned, is how dangerous it is when a disease becomes politicized.
Yeah.
I think Donald Trump, is really significantly to blame for this. He had a golden opportunity to lead the nation, and he squandered it. And this became politicized as a result. It fed right into the conspiracy theory hungry folks that were already his supporters, and as a result, we continue to be afflicted by this thing, and the politicalization of it hasn't stopped. I mean, poor Dr. Fauci, who all he's tried to do is lead the country in the absence of presidential leadership under Donald Trump. All he's tried to do is to hold this thing at bay as best he can. And, he constantly has to fight the Ted Cruz's and Tom Cottons of the world, who and Rand Paul's of the world, who are, calling him a liar, saying that he needs to be prosecuted, just utterly ridiculous stuff. So, I don't know if you've heard this, but Ted Cruz has suggested that Dr. Fauci lied to Congress, and should be prosecuted by the Justice Department, and has called on Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Dr. Fauci. Particularly, this is about the funding of the lab in Wuhan, China, and what was involved with that. We've had Rand Paul, who is jousted with Fauci over the vaccines in congressional hearings. Tom Cotton, who likewise has tried to blame all of this on Dr. Fauci. And Dr. Fauci, in response, is basically framing this as saying, listen, these guys are anti-science, and what they're attacking here is simply the reality of the science involved, and what the science has discovered. And one of the things that has been suggested, so a reporter asked Dr. Fauci if he thought that this was happening from these Republican senators because they were trying to distract attention away from Donald Trump being blamed for his inept and incompetent handling of the coronavirus and the pandemic. And Dr. Fauci said, you have to be asleep not to figure that one out. I mean, Dr. Fauci he was going to say pulling no punches, but he kind of pulled that punch a little bit. But it's very clear what he was saying. This is Dr. Fauci getting a little bit political in response, because he's been so attacked politically. It is absolutely ridiculous.
And I love his response here from this headline. Says, I'm going to be saving lives and they're going to be lying. It's like, while you all are playing games with people's lives, I'm doing the work to try to keep people from dying from a deadly disease.
Yeah. Boy. as if the the coronavirus stuff couldn't get any weirder, that the politicalization couldn't be any stronger. We've got like a new example of um, political pandering when it comes to the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
This comes from Nancy Mace, who is a congresswoman from South Carolina, Republican congresswoman. And it is within a couple of hours. She does two media appearances, one on Fox News, one on CNN. And wouldn't you know it, her message is completely different based on what she thinks the audience wants to hear. And it's kind of shocking. Yeah. Dan, we've got this video, right? Do we want to listen to this?
Yeah, let's take a look.
One of the things that the CDC has not done, and no policymaker at the federal level has done so far, is taken into account what natural immunity does. And that may be what we're seeing in Florida today. In some studies that I have read, natural immunity gives you 27 times more protection against future COVID infection than a vaccination. And so we need to take all of the science into account and not selectively choosing what science to follow when we are making policy decisions.
So is that part of something that, back in your community, you are actively encouraging everyone else to get vaccinated, especially now with this new development about the new variant?
I have been, and I've been a proponent of vaccinations and wearing masks when we need to. When we had the Delta variant raging in South Carolina, I wrote an op-ed to my community, and I've worked with our State Department of Health. I've run ads encouraging my district to go and get vaccinated. And when we have these variants and we have these spikes, to take every precaution from washing our hands to wearing the N95 or KN95 masks more than the medical mask. There is a statistically significant number of people that are protected from COVID when they wear those masks.
So a couple different tunes, just a matter of minutes apart.
So, yeah, on Fox News, her message is the science includes, natural immunity being even more effective than the vaccine. Ridiculous talking points.
27 times more effective. And the wording of it, some studies I've read, it smacks of like Donald Trump's. Many people are saying that this is very effective. Yeah. It's like, okay, show us the study, please.
Or yes, and also smacks of, my friend on Facebook from my my church growing up who, posted a YouTube video, so
yeah,
settled. So, I mean, minutes, hours later, still wearing the same outfit. She goes on CNN. She's asked about vaccines, and she's like, "Oh yeah, everybody needs to be vaccinated. I've encouraged that. I've written an op-ed. Dan, this shows what we're up against here.
Yeah,
that what we do not have from these Republicans in Congress is leadership. Leadership is, telling people, encouraging them, pointing a direction, saying, this is the way we need to go. This is what needs to happen. You might be scared. You might have questions, but we've got to do this. We've got, I don't know, as Franklin Roosevelt said, we've got nothing to fear but fear itself. Like leadership that says, this is what we need to do. We're going to rally ourselves to do it. We don't have that here. We have pandering. Yeah. We have pandering from, these Republicans in Congress who just want to, and to use a biblical phrase, tickle the ears of their listeners and tell them what they want to hear. And, they know they're lying. That's the thing that's frustrating. She is telling the truth on CNN and she is lying on Fox, and she knows, but she doesn't want to have the political implications of going on Fox News and telling people that they need to be vaccinated. This is a really scary, scary development in our political system where everything is political and everything is pandering to your echo chamber, to your audience. It's a scary thing. It does not bode well for our ability to, be one nation indivisible.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, it seems like part of the problem is the 24-hour news cycle. Like, you get people that have to get on TV several times a day, and it comes down to clicks and likes and shares and votes. They're pandering for votes, and yeah, we've kind of created a monster in that respect as well, where
Yes.
we just have to feed the beast more clicks.
Yes. Speaking of creating problems that we wish we could put back into the bag. Oh goodness. The conflict that exists not just in the country, but in Congress is continues to erupt over. Last week, I feel like it's this week, and as the Congress turns, last week we were talking about Representative Gosser, kind of a creepy dude, quite frankly, getting censured, losing his committee assignments because he tweeted a video, an animated video of himself killing Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This week's latest soap opera from Washington, D.C. involves Lauren Bobert, who I like to call Lauren Bobert because it's fancy, but it's Bobert. Lauren Bobert, the gun-toting anti-squad, Bizarro Squad member from Colorado. You remember her? She's the one who owns the restaurant, and where the waitresses carry guns, and she's been trying to be the Bizarro version of the squad. This week at a campaign event, she went after Ilhan Omar, Congresswoman from Minnesota, our fearless leader Doug Padgett's Congresswoman. And she went after Ilhan Omar for being Muslim, and so she told the story in at a campaign event, and I don't know if you've seen the video, but it's it is a frustrating one. But basically, as the story goes, she says that she was getting into an elevator at the Capitol, and Ilhan Omar was also in the elevator, and a Capitol police officer ran up to her and said, "Oh, are you sure you want to get in there?"
None of this sounds real, by the way. It's like 100% made up story. But
yes, and she says to the Capitol police officer, "Oh, well, she's not wearing a backpack, so I should be okay." Indicating that she was a suicide bomber who would be wearing a backpack full of explosives. And then she said to Ilhan Omar, "Oh, it looks like the Jihad Squad decided to show up for work today." So what we've got here are racist, Islamophobic stories being created and jokes being made at the expense of a woman of color who serves in the United States Congress, who happens to be Muslim. In defense of Lauren Boebert, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others have tweeted about this ridiculous and offensive story about Ilhan Omar marrying her brother and as a way to get into the country illegally, and all of this ridiculousness. And meanwhile, Kevin McCarthy is doing nothing. Apparently, Lauren Boebert called Ilhan Omar to apologize, but she didn't actually apologize. She gave one of those ridiculous statements about, if anybody was offended by what I said. And was her response to Ilhan Omar was so milquetoast that Ilhan Omar hung up on her and went on with her day. But this is just another example of like this partisanship being so great, and the division going so deep, and the desire of these elected officials to score political points and appeal to their base. They can run some social media ads saying, "Oh, look, I'm standing up to them," when in fact what they're doing is further dividing the country, failing to lead, failing to actually solve any problems, and distracting Congress from doing the important work it needs to do to, I don't know, curb climate change, or get people health care, or take care of our veterans, or like all of these things that need to be done. Not so much.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna make up stories. We're gonna lie about each other, and crack these racist Islamophobic jokes, and it's just it is what a time to be alive, Dan.
Yeah, it's like, let's score some cheap political points to your base. And if you think this is going to play well to your base, like making Islamophobic jokes, like, what does that say about your base? Like that, oh, this is going to kill. This is going to be a great little bit where I suggest one of my fellow Congress people is a terrorist. They're going to get a good chuckle out of this. It's just playing to the lowest common denominator of the Republican base and stoking further divisions, further hatred. And meanwhile, the Republican Party isn't doing anything. Like, I haven't heard of a new idea from the Republican Party other than stop Biden from doing anything. Yeah. It's like easy things like the infrastructure bill that is going to fund just bridges and roads and things that will help most Americans.
Yep.
All but 10 or 15 Republicans
16
voted against it. Like, well, what better idea do you have? I'd love to hear a Republican idea. I'll be waiting for a while.
We're listening. We're waiting. But listen, so lest we, and this is not a whataboutism kind of thing. This is not a both sides kind of thing. But I think we do have to recognize that there is some level at which, like, when there's corruption, the corruption goes deep, and having good policies does not, protect you from being corrupt. And that new news out now with the ongoing saga of the Cuomo brothers, involves Chris Cuomo being accused of trying to help his brother Andrew Cuomo in the midst of the scandals that cost him the governorship of New York. Chris Cuomo using his media sources to try to get dirt on Andrew's accusers. Now, is just kind of full disclosure, one of Andrew Cuomo's first accusers is a friend of mine, Lindsey Boylan, and Lindsey really kind of led the charge, and as a result of what she did, brought about a number of circumstances which led to the end of Andrew Cuomo's time as the governor of New York. Chris Cuomo, who is, a CNN host, he's, one of the star hosts of CNN in their evening news shows. We have the sense that our journalists should be objective, that they should, put aside kind of their personal stuff to report just the facts, ma'am, just the news. Like, that's what they're supposed to do. And what we find out now is that Chris Cuomo was actually using his position as a CNN host to help his brother. And a couple of things with this. Three things. One, I don't think this comes as any surprise, right? Like, didn't we all kind of have a sense that this was going on? And so I'm like, part of me wants to be like, so. However, the second thing is this really reinforces the narrative of like the liberal media who that the right wing has, that the media is liberal and they don't, all they care about is their political agenda, and they aren't reporting the news. You can't trust the news, fake news, all of that stuff. And this is a really unfortunate kind of buttressing of that opinion, which I think isn't a good one. However, thirdly, I think it's really important for us to realize that objectivity's a myth. No one can actually be objective. No one can. It's I think that objectivity is impossible, and the sooner we get rid of the myth of objectivity, the better we'll be able to evaluate things, and we won't be surprised by things, and we'll be able to take things for what they are as opposed to what we hope they are. And anybody who's watching CNN thinking there is no bias, there is no perspective, there is no slant, is just in La La Land. There cannot be any, there is no avoiding that. It exists. It exists in every piece of journalism, from the story that's told to the stories that aren't told. Objectivity is a myth. And as soon as we realize that, the better we'll be at being consumers of the news. And and this, this is a weird and unfortunate story that, isn't going to do the Cuomo brothers any good.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it just takes one or two anecdotal stories of a news person on the left doing something shady to reinforce the myth that everybody on the left is doing something shady. And so it's a bummer in that respect. But
so
go ahead.
Yeah. So Dan, a couple other things that I don't have a lot to say about them. I just wanted to kind of mention them. Jack is out at Twitter.
Good old Jack.
Have you ever tweeted at Jack? Yeah.
No, I haven't bothered.
Yeah.
Did he respond to you ever? Have you?
No, I don't think I've ever tweeted at Jack either. But Jack Dorsey is out as the CEO of Twitter. This is going to be interesting to see what happens. Big tech, quote unquote, has become a political enemy of Donald Trump and his followers. And I don't know kind of what implications this has for politics quite yet, but what kind of changes will come to Twitter. All I can say is, listen, with Jack gone, Parag, listen, edit button.
Just give us an edit button. That's all
edit
we want.
Button. That's all we want. Twitter is a hellscape. It is a cesspool. It is it is the dystopian experience of humanity that I have a love-hate relationship with, and will often find myself doom scrolling. Especially, you would not believe how awful Cleveland Browns Twitter is. The only thing that could make Twitter better, edit button. Give it to us, Parag. It's what we want.
It's what we've always wanted. Yeah, you misspell one little word because you're typing real fast with your thumbs, and you just got to live with it forever.
You got to live with it forever. So we'll see what happens at Twitter with Jack being gone, one of the founders. Now, Jack has not always been the CEO of Twitter. He was initially, and then took a break, and someone else was, and then he came back, and now he says it's time for Twitter to move on from its founders. One other story that there's not much to talk about yet. Everything that could be said would be speculation. But that is, Roe v. Wade is on the chopping block at the Supreme Court. And, it is of deep, deep concern. The Supreme Court is hearing a couple of abortion law cases, one of them regarding Texas's law, one of them regarding Mississippi's law. And, with a strong conservative majority on the court, there is a lot of thought that we're going to see the Roe v. Wade overturned, and abortion law being sent back to the states to decide for themselves. And Senator Jeanne Shaheen is warning that revolution will happen if it's overturned.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah. But I think that indicates just how scared women are about this, and so it's something to keep an eye on. I think right now everything's just speculation, and I'm not sure that speculation is going to be good for us at this point, because I think we just turn to doom and gloom and fear. I often say that kids don't imagine bunnies under their bed; they imagine monsters under their bed, because we filled the unknown with bad. And so whenever we're speculating, when we're thinking about how things could go, I think we naturally go towards the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed, prayers being said that the Supreme Court surprises us, but something certainly to keep an eye on, that is going to be a really significant decision for women all over the country, and is going to have pretty significant political implications as well. But we'll get to all of that when the decision's made.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say it's been surprising to see where some of the Trump-appointed justices have landed on other cases. I think Republicans were hoping for more activist roles from them, and they've not been as aggressive as some had hoped. So, yeah, we'll see how this shakes out.
Yeah. Well, Dan, it looks like we need to get off this podcast so you can apply some sunscreen.
This beam of sun just keeps creeping closer, and it's blinding.
Goodness. Yeah. Well, listen, I really hope that next week our fearless leader, Doug Padgett, will be back with us. He was hoping to join today, like I said, and I think he's kind of chopping at the bit to tell everybody his opinions about everything. So if you have missed those, Doug should be back next week, which we're excited about. In the meantime, thanks for listening, and want to encourage you to keep doing good in the world.
Yeah.